Hey there, Moufarrege here from growthevoice.com. So I just recently sat down with Mine Sample and we did a video together.
So yeah, this video is intended for people who are actively gigging and performing and have started taking voice lessons and are starting to feel a little bit discouraged along the process by comments that you're hearing back from other people. These people may be non-singers. Some of them might be singers. Some of them might be singers that have had some training before, whatever, but you're getting feedback from them and it's discouraging you. So I'm going to give you an overview of what the process actually looks like from beginning to end. So let's say you've been gigging for some time now, or maybe you've been starting to gig more and more, and you've become known for a certain type of sound, that people are starting to expect a certain type of sound from you. And so you go into your performances and you give your best that you can there, but you walk out of your performances with strain on your voice. You might be losing your voice. You might be getting hoarse. You might be having consistency issues where it's like, oh, I can do it some nights, but then these other nights I can't do it anymore. And then you end up going into your performances feeling nervous and feeling anxious because you don't know how your voice is going to perform on a particular day or what it's going to do. So you have all of these personal issues that the audience is not seeing. Your audience is going, oh, I like that sound. Do it again. Do it again. Want to hear it again. That's what your audience is doing. But they don't know all this other stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So that's what leads you out to start taking lessons. And as you start taking lessons, it addresses the issues that you're having that's causing those consistency issues, that's causing that anxiety, that's causing those tension issues, that's causing you to get hoarse. And as you begin working on that, for some people, depending on how long you've had those issues for and how stubborn your habits are, it can take a while. It can take several months. It might even take a couple of years before you really get down to it and completely resolve those issues. So in the process of working with that, as you're taking your lessons, things start to feel better to you, that you can sing the notes more consistently, that now you're not losing your voice when you're doing your performances. Maybe your sound changed a little bit in this process. Maybe perhaps you can't sing with quite as much power as you did before. Maybe you can't go quite as high as you were trying to do before because you're kind of rebalancing things, so you shouldn't sing as high at the moment. Maybe you can't sing with certain colors or a certain type of grit or something like that that you were using before that your audience came to expect out of you. So maybe you can't do those things at the moment as you're reworking your whole voice and trying to get things back together to where you can be consistent. And then you start hearing these comments out of your audience like, it was okay, but I really preferred the way that you sang 6 months ago. Like, you were really killing it then. Can't you just go back to singing that way? And then you're like, what exactly do you mean? And then maybe they might bring up a particular performance, or they might get you to sing something, try to sing it the way you did a few months ago, and they'll go, yeah, just like that. And you go, but that's killing my throat to sing that way. But they go, but I like that sound so much better. And this is a very real situation that a lot of you, if you're gigging actively, you're more than likely going to run into this scenario eventually. Eventually, you're going to get people that are going to come up and say that to you, because you have to realize that the way your audience hears your sound and the way that you perceive it, in terms of like physical sensations are not exactly the same thing. They just hear a sound. They want to be thrilled. They want to be excited. They want to hear these interesting colors and textures in the voice. But your audience doesn't care whether or not those sounds and textures and colors come at a price. They don't care if it comes at the price of you losing your voice, of you not being able to basically you being out of a voice a year after gigging and performing like that. They don't care about that. They just want to know, oh, these are interesting sounds. And then once you're done and you can't sing anymore, they'll go on to the next person who can do that, and they'll listen to them for that time period. And then when that person can't do it anymore, then there's going to be another one that's going to come after that. And you're kind of a disposable commodity, so to speak. So you have to really put yourself first and realize that your audience isn't thinking in that mindset normally, unless they're singers themselves. If they're singers themselves, and they kind of understand this a little bit more, but you really have to be cognizant of that they're not coming from that mindset. So you have to let those types of comments not discourage you, because the thing that really gets people is when those types of comments come from someone that you respect a lot, or someone that you're close to, or someone that you've known a long time. When it comes from those types of people, that's when it's hardest to recover from. It's because people don't understand voice training. They don't understand what the actual process of voice training looks like. And in the average person's mind, they just think that, oh, you just learn to breathe, and you take a few lessons and you learn to breathe, and then you'll be able to sing high notes, and you'll be able to sing without strain, and you can still give the exact same sound that you were given before, and everything will be fine. That's how the average person perceives voice training, and that's not the reality of it. And you have to realize that those people that may be close to you and making those types of comments, that unless they're singers themselves who have gone through the process of training their voice, who have had to struggle with their voice at some point in time. You're not talking about people who were always able to sing easily from day one. We're talking about people who actually had to struggle with their voice, who went through issues with their voice, who went through consistency issues, who went through the issues of performance anxiety because they don't know if their voice is going to be reliable on this day or the next day. You want those types of people. Those types of people will understand. But if it's someone who's never gone through any of that, and they're making these comments, they're just going to be like, they're going to make ignorant comments, but they're going to hurt you a lot. And you have to just be aware that they just don't understand what's going on. You have to keep reminding yourself that they don't understand the whole process. And even if you try to explain it to them, they might not care to understand either. They might want to stick to the old ideas that they have in their mind.
I think that's a good point. And I think it's important to hang around people who are trying to learn how to sing too. People who are like yourself, so that you can have a social circle, just so you understand that there's other people like you. So there's, when I was learning to sing, I knew several people on the internet, friends of mine who were also learning how to sing. So it was like they were going through similar issues to me. And it was really helpful to just know that there's people like that out there, or people on forums too, people struggling with this stuff. So, it can be, one thing you got to be careful about is practicing at home surrounded by people who don't get it. Because you're going to feel like psychologically that you've got to create the CD sound, or cover up your flaws with things that sound good, but they're actually causing tension. So if you're finding that when you go to do your training at home, that it's revealing all your problems, and then if you know that people are listening, you're going to instinctively try to cover up those problems, and it's going to be really a troubling time trying to overcome your singing issues. So what I recommend, or at least for me, when I was training, I never dared to practice when people are in the house. I always either did it in the car, or I did it someplace where I could open up, because another issue is volume. Sometimes you feel like, I can't be too loud, so I'm going to be soft. So when you can't just be yourself and then just isolate the problems, you're going to start creating issues to make the sound good. And it has to be a process where you get out of that, and you will sound bad. But not everyone's going to understand that, and they're going to think, oh, well, if you sound bad, it means that you're just doing it wrong. So you've got to, go back to what you had before, and you're like, well, it doesn't feel good. I'm straining. It's like, well, who cares? Go back to that. It's, singing is all about emotion. So just put some emotion into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it doesn't really work that way. You can just put emotion into it, but you want to really put emotion into it while having a voice that works right. So, at some stage, you've got to really, I know it hurts to get comments that make you feel bad, especially by people that you look up to. But at some stage, you've just got to understand that they just don't get it. And you've got a choice. You've got a choice. You either listen to them and go back to what you did before, which doesn't serve you, and you've tried that, or try something else, which is what you were doing. You're trying something that is actually producing results. You got to stick with that, because you've tried that way. Now you got to try another way. That's how this game works. You can't just, beat your head against a wall and expect something different. So, unfortunately, you may not be able to explain this to them when they say, you sound weird. Why don't you just sing it naturally? And it's like, well, if I sing it naturally, I strain. It's, you just do it. It's all about the sound. How are you going to sell a CD if you don't sound good? It's like, that's true, but how are you going to sell your next CD, and then your third CD, and your fourth CD, and your fifth CD? You've got to think about your 10th CD, not just your first CD. Otherwise, you're not going to have a career. You're not going to have a sound. So you've got to think of where you're going to be in 10 years rather than what you can do in 6 months. And then the year later, your voice is gone. So you've got to get out of the short-term thinking and get into the long-term thinking. And unfortunately, you're just going to have to understand that some feedback you won't be able to make use of. Some feedback is going to hurt, and you're not going to be able to make any use out of it or any in a constructive way. You will have to dismiss certain types of feedback. It doesn't mean you're closed-minded. You should be open to hearing everything, but what you take on board has to be selected, because some people say things that are just wrong. They'll say, some people even say that you are straining even if you're not straining, because they just hear it. They just hear a certain sound. They may just hear loud sounds and go, "Oh, you're just screaming," which may not be the case. And
I saw that in a comment yesterday about Linda Eder. The woman was not straining or screaming to sing the notes in her song. And in one of the comments on the YouTube video, it said, "She's just screaming. I wish that she would just sing like she did in the beginning of the song." And I'm going, are we listening to the same thing? And that's where you also have to realize that everyone has a bias in terms of a sound that they prefer, in terms of what they think sounds good and what they think doesn't sound good. And a lot of times you won't know what that person's bias is until they start to talk to you. All you'll hear them say is, "Oh, you sound like you're screaming," even though you might not be screaming. Or they might say, "Oh, you sound like you're straining," even though you might not be straining. Or you might sound like this, or you sound like that, or there's a million things that people can come up with that they might say. And it just has a lot to do with their bias. And you just got to remember, everyone already has a bias in terms of what kind of sounds they prefer. For some people, singing a song with even a single run in it means that you can't sing. And that's their bias. Okay. Some people just want to hear everything plain, straight, exactly the way it was written, with no alterations whatsoever. If you make even just a minor alteration, you can't sing. So you just have to realize that everyone's coming at this from a different angle. What I would suggest is make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who are realistic with you, but also supportive of what you're doing, that you've kind of explained the process of what you're going through and what you're trying to achieve, and giving them kind of just a general overview that, yeah, it's going to be some parts in here where as I'm reworking my voice, it might be a little bit, iffy for a while as I'm reworking through these tension patterns, but I'm going to eventually get to the point where I'll be able to get all of it back. If they understand all of that and they are realistic with you, those are the types of people that you want around. And those are the only types of comments that you should really take to heart, or as commentary from those types of people.
Also, I think this goes into how you select a teacher, because some people say like, oh, you've got to pick a teacher that sings your style because they can only teach you how to sound like them, which that may be true in some cases, but that's not really how it should work. I mean, if you get a good teacher, they should be geared around just helping you create sound in a free way, so that it opens up the opportunity for you to explore what you wanted to explore and to begin with freely. So singing technique shouldn't be a limitation. Like some people think, well, if I learn how to sing correctly, I'm just going to sound like an opera singer, and then I won't be able to get that nice, dirty kind of sound I'm after. It's like, well, no, it gives you the freedom so that then you can explore different things and mold it with the least amount of chance of error. That's really all it should be doing. And a teacher should be showing you how to do that. But in that process, you may have to do sounds that don't sound like the sound you want to do. You may have to do sounds that are louder than the style of music you want to sing.
Or softer.
Or softer, that's right. Or darker, or brighter, or wider, or more narrow. And or sometimes you're led down a certain sound so that you can then do this sound, if that makes sense. So, the path is usually not linear. It's not like, oh, you want to sing like this? Oh, there. It's usually you try to do this, but there's a strain or a tension. So you got to learn how to do this, and then you got to learn how to do this, and you learn how to do this, and then that takes you to where you want to go. And that detour, or it's not really a detour, it's just the only path you can take to get there, can take several years. It can take several months. It depends how far away you are from it. So when somebody says like, how long is it going to take me to learn this? It's like, well, it depends how far away you are from it. When you started, that's why sometimes you see testimonials from people that are like, oh, they only trained like 3 months and they sound amazing. But then other people that trained 3 months and they're only slightly better. It's because this person was almost there, or they just needed this thing. That's why you get teachers that are sometimes like, it's all about the breath, or you get a teacher, it's like, it's all about the throat. It's because they may have only needed that one thing to take them from here to here. And so it's best to find a teacher that understands exactly where you are and the things that you need to get to here. You may try to do this, and then there's a door that closes. It's like, oh, that causes more strain. Okay, we take you this way. That causes more strain. Oh, but down here, that allows you to get a free sound. Now, here's where you want to be. Now you go there, and then you're there. That's what the process may look like. So I would also say, to add on to this, is you've got to pick your social circle carefully and your audience for your music carefully, because just like what Marnell was saying, if you can go on YouTube and look up famous singers, even some of the singers that are considered the best singers in the world, and they still got hate comments. Nobody is liked 100%. There's, you could go on Michael Jackson, you could go on Ronnie James Dio, you could go on, Aretha, Whitney Houston. You're going to see somebody that's like, oh, Whitney Houston, oh, she just yells. Or you're going to hear like, oh, she's all right, but she's overrated. Or you're going to see all these comments by people that like faceless nobodies, right? So that's just the way it is. You got to understand that.
I would just say some takeaway points for this are just realizing that as you're going through the process of learning your voice, that, you're going to have some, what I call the dark days, dark moments where it's not ideally what you want it to be. But that's, especially when you get feedback from people that's negative or that's not ideal, that's where you have to look at the situation realistically. Are you able to use your voice more consistently? Are you singing with less strain? Are you able to walk out of your performances without being hoarse, or at least it's happening less frequently than what it did in the past? Are your capabilities of what you can do with your voice expanding? Like, can you do a little bit more with your voice now than you could before? Are you going into your performances feeling confident, not anxious, wondering, is my voice going to make it? Is it not going to make it? If you look at those objective things and you can honestly say, yes, I am improving in these areas, then that means that you are on the right track, regardless of whatever kind of feedback you're getting from your audience. And that just means like just hang in there a little bit longer until your capabilities improve more to where you can still be consistent and also give your audience a little bit more of the sound that they want.
I'd also like to add to that is understand the sound that you want rather than the sound that they want. Because I can tell you this from firsthand experience on YouTube, that it's, you know, people will say, oh, I want to hear you do more belting. You do more belting, and then you're going to get comments like, you only belt. You know, why don't you sing something thinner? You sing something thinner, and then those guys that wanted to see you belting start going, oh, he only just sings thinner. You start to get comments like this. So if you start to keep chasing the sound of what they're asking for, it can really unbalance your voice and actually make you sound worse, because you start leaving what your voice really wants to do. Should we wrap this video up?
Yeah, so
cool. So thank you for watching. And if you want to learn more about how we teach, or if you're looking for a teacher that can show you how to get more consistency and less strain and more freedom in your voice, and then eventually lead you to the sound you're after, then Marnell and I both do Skype lessons, and I also have some singing programs too on my website. So check Marnell out at vocalliberation.com, myself out on growthevoice.com. And Marnell's got a free gift called How to Build a Stronger Mix, so make sure you sign up for that. I've got also my free gift that covers the types of tensions and things like that are holding you back from experiencing the freedom in your voice that you're looking for. So go to my website and sign up for that too. So you got 2 free gifts there that you can look at. Thank you for watching, and take care. See you next time.